I don't want to find myself saying what a famous figure in the Bible said was such money could be given to the poor, which was Judas. It was Judas who said that. Hello, welcome to Speak Life. I am Glen.
And I'm Nate.
And we are a channel that looks at all of life with Jesus at the center. And we're going to look at some Super Bowl ads that were aired just last night.
That's right.
You stayed up very, very late. We're in the UK here. So what time did you go to bed last night?
About 4:45.
Wow. Big Phillies fan?
Well, I'm actually a Minnesota Vikings fan, but I lived in Philadelphia for 4 years and was there when they won the Super Bowl.
Wow. And
because they didn't win it last night.
They did not. The Kansas City Chiefs won.
They did. And I'm not going to dwell on the fact that the umpires gave an outrageous defensive pass interference call that was just complete nonsense. And had that ruling not stood...
Coulda, shoulda, woulda, Nate. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Well, Jalen Hurts, I mean, if he'd had 90 seconds on the field, I'm saying he would have marched up there, and I think the Eagles would be champions right now, but it's not to be.
No, it hasn't been. You're living in a dreamland. This is counterfactual territory, and I refute that.
Well, let's just hope that this doesn't come up again in this conversation.
We were going to look in particular at a couple of ads that came up by an advertising agency. I forget the name of the agency, but the campaign is called He Gets Us.
He Gets Us, yeah.
An agency that really wants to, I guess, kind of put the brand of Jesus out there again for reconsideration among the US public. Is that the sort of thing that...
Yeah, I'd not heard much about this before seeing the adverts in the Super Bowl last night, but had heard that people were saying, "Oh, what's this? What is this presentation of Jesus? And does it do justice to who he really was, or who he really is? Sorry, and does it do justice to the biblical presentation of him? And should we get behind this and be enthusiastic about it, or should we say no? This is a radical distortion."
Which is what social media wants to do, to polarize us into these two different wings. And let's see where we land, because we haven't had extensive conversations about this before filming. If you go to their website, it does, the very first thing it says is, He Gets Us have an agenda? And it's like, yes, we have an agenda. And the first thing they say is, how did the story of a man who taught and practiced unconditional love become associated with hatred and oppression for so many people? And so I guess they're really wanting to use marketing speak, reposition the brand in a kind of a hostile marketplace, and wanting to represent Jesus to us in ways that are possibly surprising. And if you were to sort of pick one sentence as their sort of mission statement, they say that our agenda is to rediscover the love story of Jesus, Christians, non-Christians, and everybody in between, all of us. No verbs in those last two sentences, but that's not what we're here to do.
Marketing speak, isn't it? You don't need verbs to make a sentence in marketing.
I'm so 20th century me with my verbal phrases.
All of us.
Yeah, all of us. So, shall we have a look at advertisement number one? And for people who haven't seen it before, here is the first spot, a 30-second spot that happened. When did it happen in the broadcast?
I think this was after the first quarter or something, or maybe just around the 2-minute warning. But interestingly, it came just after an advert for a new Warner Brothers film called The Flash, which is based on the DC universe. Okay. So you've just watched The Flash, and been shown that, I know, Batman's making a comeback or something. Very quickly, teaser trailer, and then whammo into this.
And then this, not as high tech, but let's have a look.
What a wonderful world this would be. There'd be no trouble and no...
I didn't know that was the context. So so you're just seeing a kind of a CGI feast for the eyes.
And then you watch that.
And then you watch this, a slideshow.
But then immediately after that, you then watch, I think it was Adam Driver did a Squarespace advert in which Adam Driver turns into thousands of Adam Drivers, and it's just a comedy sort of thing. So that's part of the kind of whiplash of just watching the Super Bowl ads, is that as soon as you're trying to get your head around one, you're hit with another one.
Right. And as you were hit with this one, what were your first reactions?
I really like it. I actually really like, and the music's great. The pictures are very cute and adorable, and it very, very quickly. What's the duration of it? It was like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it just says, takes Jesus' teaching, unless you become like a little child, you will never inherit the kingdom of God. And that provokes people to sort of go, lean in. What's that saying?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, when I did watch it, I thought, how expensive was it to get those images and that music and that little video of the two little boys running down
that's famous,
the sidewalk pavement. But
such a contextualizer.
yeah, that is a very a viral video. So they're using a load of stuff which is culturally, it's got a cultural cachet in itself, and then framing that to say, be childlike.
It's very interesting that would be, because they've got a whole suite of videos, and you can go onto hegetsus.com and see the rest of them. It's interesting why they would choose that for the Super Bowl slots. You know, they don't give away these slots. They're quite expensive. So $100 million is the figure that everyone's touting around for how much the entire campaign is sort of costing. I don't know what chunk of that went on Super Bowl, but a significant chunk. And they chose this video, which I think goes to show they're not trying to give the entirety of the gospel in 30 seconds.
No, if they were, that wouldn't be great.
That wouldn't be great. I think some people are judging them through that prism, though. I think they're kind of expecting, okay, if we're going to spend $100 billion, let's...
Well, I suppose part of the thing is because, so this came, as I say, I think came in the first half, when the Philadelphia Eagles were just, trouncing Kansas City Chiefs, and Jalen Hurts had gone down, multiple touchdowns. Mahomes twisted his ankle, which he'd hurt earlier on in the playoffs. So it was Patrick Mahomes, league MVP for the year. And so he was going off. So certainly for the Philadelphia Eagles fans, or the people who wanted them to win last night, there was a sort of a joyfulness and a cheerfulness and a sense of expectation. But wasn't the whole story. See what I'm saying there? They hadn't finished.
I see what you're saying. I'm just not sure why.
Okay. No. But yeah, so it's clearly an awful attempt to explain the entirety of the gospel. But in terms of illustrating and inviting people to think about Jesus, what's the sentence again? He doesn't want us to be adults.
Right. Oh, yeah. What was the
actual line? So he didn't want us to act like adults. That's quite a provocative lean-in sort of. Well, what?
Oh, hang
what
on.
Do you mean?
Disruptive.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think there's something positive in that.
There is. I mean, I think it assumes a lot, doesn't it? In terms of who is this Jesus guy and all the rest of it, which I guess in a US context, a lot more people identifying as Christians than over here in the UK. So there is that, and I think the subversiveness works when you know the story. You can subvert a story if you know the story.
Yeah.
If people don't know the story, you've got to tell the story and then subvert it. Yeah. And I guess in a US context, you're more able perhaps to subvert, whereas in a UK context, you might be back to storytelling mode and just can we just be clear on the basics of this before we show how countercultural it is?
The other thing, just to say though, in terms of the programming that's happening in this context, I appreciate this campaign is much wider than the Super Bowl itself. So it's been going for some months, I think, and they're hoping to kind of keep it running for a while longer. But what this does within the context of that programming is it takes something that you have been sort of they've been hitting you over the head with for hours in the build-up to the game, which is this sense of shared humanity, and it's all very values-driven, and you're seeing diversity, you're seeing like a very a very philosophically driven idea. You're not just being told, hey, get ready for a game.
Unum. Yes.
Yeah, you're
Out of
being
the many
told.
one, yeah.
So you're being told about how America is the home of the brave and the land of the free. You're being told that it's a land for all peoples. You're being told that it's a chance for coming together and all that sort of stuff. So a video like this, which is a montage of different photographs and clips that asks us to think about ourselves as human beings, is in keeping entirely with what's been happening so far on the Super Bowl. Now, at no point in any of those other kind of video clips that they put together is someone going to say that's the entirety of what you're supposed to say about America.
Yep. True. Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah.
but so I thought in that sense, lots of the adverts are just like, you know, comic and manic. But this one certainly kept up with that same vibe.
Taps into that. Should we have a look at the second one, which I guess was after halftime?
Yes.
One called "Love Your Enemies."
This was when, as I say, the Kansas City Chiefs were coming back. Mahomes just every time he picked up the ball, he was going to score. So.
What's a good message for you then, Nate? Love your enemies.
Yes.
Love your enemies. Love
Here
across
it
the
is.
divide. Here we go.
Maybe I'm foolish, maybe I'm blind, thinking I can see through this.
Quite a shot to the mouth.
Got no way to prove it, so maybe I'm lying.
Are all of these staged?
Look in the mirror, what do you see?
This, surely.
Clearer, all you see
Yes.
is what you believe. 'Cause I'm only human after all.
Oh. Take that.
Again.
See, that's got a punch to it.
Oh, definitely.
quite the punch.
Yeah, because what you're expecting that to do, what you've seen so often, and this is where it is a stutter step that can get you around, is you've seen so often it's a let's love.
Right. Yeah. 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 Has a banality.
Hate has no home here.
Right. Yeah. Love is love.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, let's not hate.
Yeah.
And then that just basically just grabs you and says,
Right,
you hate. You are a hater.
Yeah.
And it says, Jesus loves the people that you actually love to hate.
Yeah.
And so that's what I get. I think it was like very different from the, hey, here's a bunch of little cutie kids.
Yeah. And very different from like drink another Pepsi. This is like, yeah, this preaches, like it doesn't preach the gospel, but it preaches an aspect of the teaching of Scripture that absolutely gets its hooks into you, twists, and then says, "You are the man." You know, in that very Nathan-style way, in 60 seconds. So that's a huge accomplishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you make of? Let's talk about the style for a second. They have enough money to do motion pictures and not just a slideshow. Why do you think they've gone for images?
It's interesting that the whole aesthetic is very much high-end photography and a kind of a form of journalism and marketing, which is very clean, it's very simple, it feels almost more raw because every photo is black and white and the music's being used very powerfully. But it's a very clean kind of image.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I do think it feels, like I said before, it feels like those kind of civic messaging pieces that you've seen in high-end political campaigning and lobby groups. So, yeah, it's got a sense of we're trying to speak to the entire nation in a very in, some people might say actually a patronizing way,
Okay.
in a way that doesn't sort of, talk to you as though you are a human being maybe, or an individual. It's saying this is all of us, and that's part of their campaigning as well. So, it's got that.
Is there something as well about, because it's portraits, it's asking you to reframe what you see. So the narrative quite often is coming over the top. But in a lot of the videos on the website, there's a narrator and there's the images, and the narrator is telling a story perhaps of Christ's life, and the images are these portraits of a kind of a world that we're familiar with in the 21st century, but a reality that's being spoken in Jesus-y terms.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether portraits sort of give you that sense of look again, pause, look again, reframe what you're thinking.
And then what's so interesting about this one is that as we look at these images, these photographs of these angry people, right? They're actually, you feel distaste towards those people. Right. So you're looking at those angry people and their frustration, and then it says Jesus loved the people we hate.
Love the people we hate.
So you go, oh, I'm
a hater.
that person.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, quite sort of interesting. And that's where it kind of, it sort of hits you.
Because we would think the hashtag would be haters gonna hate. And it's like, you're the hater.
Yeah.
Like, which I think that's very effective communication. Should we have a look at another one? This is, so on the website, you can go and look at, there are 3 featured YouTube videos as of today, the 13th of February. And the third one that you can have a look at is called AI Love. I think there's a couple of twists there, aren't there? There's the twist of what do you think of picture as love, and again, normally we think of the banalities, and this presses into, oh no, it's love of the oppressed, and it's costly, and it's sacrificial, and it's feeding the hungry, and so that's one twist. And then the twist upon a twist, I guess, is Jesus' love was never artificial. And so, so he was the one who gave his life for his friends. He was so you go from love as a slogan to, no, this bites, doesn't it? Because do you really love like this in sacrificial, costly ways? And then twist upon twist, Jesus is the one who has effected that. And I guess are we his friends? And it communicates that in 90 seconds, and I think that's really well done. Yeah.
So I think this one's really well done, not least because it uses Rückenfigure almost in every single shot.
Explain Rückenfigure.
I'd love to explain. So Rückenfigure is a compositional tool originally really used in romantic painting. Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog by Caspar David Friedrichs would be the primary example. And it's basically just a figure who's shown from the back, Rückenfigure, sort of back figure from German. And as you look at the figure, you can't see their face, and so you see what they see. and they become a more of a universalizing figure than if you could see their face in a potential.
It's not just NFL, folks.
So
Not just NFL.
I want to do a whole video on that, but I just thought it's really striking that it works very effectively. They've clearly chosen which pictures they want to show, and yet in showing that humanity being expressed through a figure or a silhouette or a Rukan figure is powerful. I think it is really powerful. My issue is with this sentence, Jesus' love was never artificial, because I don't know that I've really got any time to think that through, and I don't know that it's presented in. It's almost like you could just write that and go, Jesus' love was never artificial. Okay, so he must have had like something, real love was Jesus' love sort of thing. But with the other stuff that's going on, I just think that's the bit that I didn't quite jive with.
Yeah. And of course the temptation would be the final scene, what does love look like, laying down your life for your friends. What picture are you thinking they're going to show? Like, where's the crucifixion? Where's the crucifixion? And they're asking you to kind of fill in the blanks, really, at that stage. Which again is, you've got to do it in advertising. You've got to figure out like what is the level we're going to pitch this at. What sort of knowledge are we going to assume in people already? And I guess they've assumed. I think in the whole campaign, they've assumed a high view of Jesus already. I think that's kind of baked into their understanding. So that I think when people come at them and say, oh, you've only got a human Jesus, I think you might get that impression. My impression is they assume an exalted view of Jesus, the Son of God. What they're really trying to do is humanize the he who is associated with stained glass windows and an ancient faith, and say, oh no, he roams the hood with his friends and all these kinds of to represent him in human dress. So and at that stage you've got to ask the question: have they assumed too much about the public understanding of Jesus?
And I think in cases like this, are they saying something that is untrue or misleading? And I think in lots of these things you go, okay, he gets us and his love was never artificial. Is that untrue? No. Is it misleading? I don't think so. But it's like, is that the main thing you want people to get?
Right.
And as you say, are you assuming too much about someone's understanding of Jesus before they've seen any of your campaign videos? I don't think it's too much of an issue. I think that the real criticism that could be put against this, in terms of the 3 videos we've shown, is why don't you just be more like Jesus? He gets you. Why don't you be a bit more like him?
As though that's their image.
The objective is like
message, right.
Become more like Jesus. I'm like, okay. How do I do that? It's like, well. You might need to explain a bit more about what that would look like and how that process takes place, if Jesus as the moral example is the aim.
And given that moralism kind of clings to us, it is the flesh. It clings to us like skin to our bones. And so you can assume that people will read things in moralistic ways unless you are actually explicitly gospel-y. And so for me, I think I've seen, I think I've seen most of the videos from He Gets Us. And I think I really like them all if the frame around them was something like, what if God is like this? And I think so many of the videos sort of speak of Jesus as a revolutionary and those sorts of things, representing the old story to us in modern clothing and saying, look again, he's interesting, isn't he? He's not the stained glass hero figure from the past that you thought he was, but a very contemporary figure as well. I think if the frame around all of these things, and I think that frame actually fits a lot of what they're trying to do. They're really trying to represent Jesus to people who are a bit jaded, who just think about culture war issues rather than Christ, above it all. They're really trying to do a revolutionary number on us. And I think if you frame it not as he gets us, so much as what if God's like this,
Yeah.
you would lose more people. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have that instant connection
Yeah.
with people so much, but I think it would have more of a hook in the people that do persist. in watching.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Go back to the thing you quoted at the beginning in terms of their agenda. They have an agenda. They do quite a little bit about, how defensive we are, and how. How did the story of a man who taught and practiced unconditional love become associated with hatred and oppression for so many people? So that's one one issue, which is, has the church got a bad rep? And how do you do a kind of marketing exercise that changes people's view? I think the thing I struggle with a little bit is that it was always like this. It's not as though, since 2016, everything's been awful, hasn't it? People have been so mean to each other. There's othering that's taking place. And there's people who are forming tribes and going against each other. It's like, this is the human condition. It's not like we've, recently, since the advent of social media, there's been a problem in the human race kind of cutting each other off and being mean to each other. And and I think that's part of, there's the marketing around the marketing for this campaign. So as I say, I haven't engaged with a lot of it before seeing the two adverts that I saw in the Super Bowl, but it's as though the argument is the church has been awful. The church has been all the Christians, aren't they the worst? It's the worst place to be. They're so horrific. Let's now try and tell you about this nice person called Jesus who's not like that. And I just want to say, are you, don't. It's as though it's kind of its main. And this is what I liked about the last video they showed in the Super Bowl, which is the love your enemies, because everything I'd heard up to this point was saying this is basically coming alongside the non-Christian to say those Christians are terrible. I know, aren't they the worst people who've ever existed because they're so bigoted? And you think, well, if your marketing within the church means that people are going, oh goodness, this is a bit aggressive towards the church, then where's the really popular presentation of the church which says it doesn't have to be some necessarily activist group, but has a kind of, has been doing the work of Jesus, proclaiming his gospel.
Do you want to experience the life of the kingdom? Every Sunday we meet. Come at 10 a.m.
Because that's the thing. So it's like, are we trying to get you to go to church?
So there's a page on the website that says, is this a campaign to get me to go to church? No. He simply invites all to consider the story of a man who created a radical love movement that continues to impact the world thousands of years later. And on it goes. Now, I think charitably, let's delimit what a bunch of 30-second ads can do. On YouTube or, and let's also note that hundreds of churches and church leaders can sign up to be on the other end of a phone when anyone on the website wants to connect, and they get plugged into local churches and local alpha groups and that sort of thing. So, and charitably, I think the videos, I don't think throw the church under the bus. I think some of this framing, though, inevitably, there's a strain of evangelism that basically says, church is terrible. Look at Christ, look at Christ, look at Christ. We're not into churchianity, man. And I think certainly some of the text on the website falls into that era. I wish there was a stronger sense of, when we look at Jesus, this is what God is like. And I think at that point, there's a cost because God language might be off-putting, but there's a huge benefit in saying, but really, if God is like this is enticing. And I think there is a danger of throwing the church under the bus and just saying, consider Jesus instead. But positives. Can I show you one more? Because I think this is a good example.
You sound like my kids.
Just one more
video.
Daddy. One more. Can we have some more screen time?
I just threw my kids under the bus with that, didn't I? No.
Whoa.
I shouldn't do that.
Whoa, don't do that.
They're
man.
wonderful.
If you've just joined us,
They're
please
delightful.
don't throw your kids under the bus. Let's watch a video called That Day.
Okay. I've never seen this one.
Come on, live reaction.
I responded to the call.
I didn't know if he was guilty or not.
I couldn't ignore public opinion.
I got caught up in the emotion of the trial.
I could have testified, but I got scared.
I'm expected to be tough on crime.
I know my son was innocent.
I will never forget his final words. Forgive them.
I think that video summarizes for me what is excellent and what is slightly less excellent.
Okay.
So what is excellent is, now that I've seen this a couple of times, I'm like, oh, every single image is actually a person from the crucifixion scene,
The Gospels,
including
yeah.
Peter and
Yeah.
Mary, and
Yeah.
there's Pilate and there's Caiaphas and Herod, and so it is representing the old story in modern dress, which is, that is how Jesus taught, right? Like all his parables are exactly
Yeah.
that. He was like, let me tell you a story about people being invited to a big wedding feast. Oh, you know that's the story of the Old Testament, right? Oh, is that what the Old Testament is?
Yeah.
Oh, so all the prophets were actually inviting people to a wedding feast. Which is
Yeah.
like, yeah, think of
Yeah.
it that way. Or, let me tell you a story about a good Samaritan who, shows up and shows mercy and like, this is how my kingdom works, and I'm like this beautiful stranger, etc.
A good Samaritan.
A good Samaritan, right? And the wrong reaction to Jesus at that point is to say, oh, but Jesus, you're not in every regard like a Samaritan, are you? I mean, you're not a syncretist, are you?
Yeah.
Or to say, of course the Old Testament is not in every regard a wedding feast, is it? And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What Jesus does in these parables is defamiliarize you with something you might have been very familiar with, and says, look again from this angle, and that helps the story to be sticky in a way that it wasn't before. So the final line in this video, like, forgive them.
Yeah.
At the end, like, oh, Jesus is the one
Yeah.
on trial. It's Jesus, it's Jesus, it's Jesus. That's what's brilliant about it. And then the final line is, Jesus rejected resentment on the cross. You're like, oh, it's a morality tale about how Jesus forgave his accusers. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Again, what if the frame around that is, what if God is on death row? What if God is being given the lethal injection?
Yeah.
What if God is...
Yeah.
So Jesus rejected resentment on the cross. Again, maybe they're just like relying on a very exalted view of Jesus in the culture, such that it kind of does the job of saying, God rejected resentment on the cross. But, because, so I just wish the framing was different.
I think the part of the question is how many times you have to watch this
Yeah.
to get what's going on, right? Now, I think there's, good pieces of work or creative craft or art or whatever, they do invite you to stand in front of them for a longer time and to reconsider them over and over again. I suppose my question is who's going to rewatch the video like this? And when you rewatch it, so having just seen it, so I think I was, I'm know what I'm kind of watching, so I'm going to pick up on, okay, so these are all characters from the Passion narratives in the Gospels, and so you can pick them out. Okay, there's Herod, and or there's Pilate, or whatever it is. And then you get to the end, and it's like, Father, forgive them. But earlier on, I was thinking, there's nothing until you get to that line that would make you go, oh, remember the gospel stories, as you were saying.
Yeah.
As you're watching it, you're thinking, are these all part of the same story? Because it's montage. Are these characters in some upcoming TV show about some, the trial or whatever it is, the Death Row Series 1 or something? So you actually need to watch it, I think, a couple of times. And if you do just watch it once and you get to that moralistic, Jesus rejected resentment, so, does that really fit with he gets us, all of us?
Right. Right.
Like, I don't know if you spent enough time.
I don't think that strapline
I don't think you've
serves them.
spent. There's enough time has been spent building you up to say when the guy says, "Forgive them," that I'm supposed to be like, "Oh no! Wow, that's incredible."
Yeah.
Like I didn't know this person was like how innocent it was. We'll watch it again because I just want to.
Let's watch it again.
I responded to the call.
I
Okay.
didn't know if he was guilty or not.
I couldn't ignore public opinion.
I got caught up in the emotion of the trial.
I could have testified, but I got scared.
I'm expected to be tough on crime.
I know my son was innocent.
I will never forget his final words. Forgive them.
But so from the Death Row season 1, trailer,
Yeah.
we don't know if this guy is innocent or not yet.
Okay.
Because all we've got to go on to say, people go, I wasn't sure, I didn't know, I responded to the call, whatever. Like, and then my son was innocent. Mm-hmm. I remember his final words, And so at that point, like within like the narrative, and that's what they didn't do, interestingly, in the Super Bowl ads. They didn't try and do telling a story, which other Super Bowl ads did. So it was an Amazon one about a dog with a family, and they it's like the great John Lewis adverts where they just draw you in and you feel this emotional kind of connection because the story it has captivated you. This doesn't captivate you with the gospel, with the story of an innocent man being executed. I actually need to know early on. It's like he was innocent, he was innocent, he was innocent. But you got to be tough on crime. It doesn't actually pull you in with the story of the execution of the innocent man, such that you then go, oh my goodness! And yet he asked to, said forgive them.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, barring you don't want more exposition though, do you? Like, or do you?
Well, I don't. Visual storytelling done well in short form commercials is something that people who are working in this field have been doing brilliantly for a long time. The struggle I get with this is that I'm apparently supposed to be like, oh, this guy was innocent, despite only having had 30 seconds of random people who I don't know how they connected together.
Yep.
Do you see what I mean?
Well, people can weigh in on the comments, but I think once you get forgive them, you're meant to say Jesus, and if you don't get it by that stage, then the strapline that says Jesus forgave people or whatever, he rejected resentment on the cross.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, it's Jesus, and then it might bear a repeat viewing. Yeah. At which point you're doing the sixth sense on the second run through,
and you can
and it's a story, and that's Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
But what that one, so the Jesus loved the people you hate. Thing. Yeah. That has a massive kick because it's not doing like narrative. It's not drawing you in with that sort of thing. It's just going hate. Look at all these hateful people, Hold on, you're a hateful person.
You're the hater.
So that does it in a different way, and I just find this one a lot less sort of emotionally compelling.
And you're free to have that. That's
fine. I do have that opinion.
It's okay, Phil. You can be wrong on the Speak Life channel. Many have been
but
before.
But don't tell me how to feel. Make me feel it. That's what I'm saying.
That's good. I think final words on He Gets Us. I don't mind that people spend lots of money on a campaign that tries to present Jesus to a world that's kind of forgotten him. I don't mind that. I don't want to find myself saying what a famous figure in the Bible said was such money could be given to the poor, which was Judas. It was Judas who said that. And I don't want to be the sort of person who says, Jesus, the guys down the road are also driving out demons. Should we shut them up? And Jesus is like, well, if they're not against us, they're for us. So I don't want to be those guys. And I think we can learn loads from this. And like even if you're not involved in social media campaigns or anything like that, I think if you're involved in telling the Jesus story again, I think you can learn from what these guys do, which is the defamiliarization thing, reclothing the story in a different way and saying, look again, because I think that gets its hooks into you in a powerful way.
Mm-hmm. And I think the use of these things, as you say, the context within which you're shown something has a big impact on it. You know, the idea that they are paying for ads to go into, you know, the Super Bowl commercial spot, the most expensive time on television, and doing this on a purely evangelistic basis, right? So there have been adverts, like pro-life adverts and all sorts of things. Tim Tebow, famous short-lived quarterback career in the NFL, but he had an advert which is talking about sort of a pro-life position. This, interestingly, is just trying to do something evangelistic and not engage with the sort of...
Or pre-evangelistic or whatever.
Trying to do something separate from that. But similarly, I think once you take these videos out of that particular context, they can be used in other contexts in which there is a more framing, it's a conversation starter, it's you know, between groups. And the church in the sort of internet age, you know, we're used to doing that. So there was, you know, falling plates or the Jefferson Beth K, I love Jesus but I hate religion thing. You know,
Numa.
As conversation starters, they can be very interesting. And but at that stage, you might want to have Bibles open to be able to have a bit more, which I'm sure they're not.
And one final thing, I was gonna make my last thing the final thing, but certainly in the UK, the number of Brits who know a Christian has shrunk to less than half the population. And so when you look at large expenditure of money to reach a mass audience with something about Jesus that hopefully, and they've thought very hard about how they're going to grab people in the website and move them through to engaging with Christians and with Christianity Explored type material and get them into churches. They've thought hard about that. They want to reach a mass audience. And in an age where you simply cannot rely on the majority of the population knowing a Christian, being able to be engaged in a personal way with Jesus, I think the argument for a mass media campaign like this is only strengthened. So, I certainly wish he gets us well, and I put out a message on social media last night to say if anyone has signed up to be one of the American Christians who is contacted when somebody on the website says, I want to get into a chat, I asked if anybody has been one of those people, and are their phones kind of ringing off the hook? Probably not, I don't know. But if you are one such person, why don't you talk to us in the comments? I'd love to hear how effective this is.
And particularly if you're in Philadelphia feeling low, and looking for, churches, then...
Nate gets you.
I get you.
Nate gets you.
Yeah, I feel... I don't get all of you. Really don't get you, but most of you. I get most of you.
Yeah, most of you gets most of them.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we hope that most of you are still listening at this stage. If you are, then why don't you give us a like and a subscribe, because there's more content like this coming your way. And why not give it a share on social media? We are also on podcasts, if that's the kind of way you like to listen to our material. So do search for the Speak Life podcast on the podcatcher of choice. Nate Morgan Locke, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Glen Scrivener.
See you next time.
Bye.